Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and it's been a while since I've done a watercolor tutorial, so I'm super excited to bring one to you today. And we are going to be painting one of my favorite subjects, which is flowers. Specifically, we are doing a rose bush, and I'm really excited to show you how to do this one because I've been exploring a lot with light and shadow, so we're going to be painting just a nice, cool shadow behind the rose bush. So if you are new to my channel, my name is Emily Winslow, and I'm an artist who loves to help others learn watercolor and grow in their art career. Let's go ahead and grab our paintbrushes and get started. So let's get started by reviewing the materials that we are using in today's painting. So I'm using the Winsor & Newton watercolor kit. For my paper, I love to use the brand Strathmore. And then of course, we're going to have a pencil, water, and some paintbrushes. I usually have 3 with me. I'll have a size 12, a size 6, and a size 1. We definitely want a tiny little one to help us with our details. And you can find these all on my Amazon storefront link in my description. So let's begin with our sketch before we paint. And I'm just going to start by marking out where I want a little border. And you can feel free to use some masking tape if you'd rather go that route. Sometimes I like to have kind of a messier look to my paintings and kind of go outside the border. So this is what I like to do if I don't use masking tape, but I definitely use it sometimes. And there's other times where I just cover the entire page without leaving a border. So like I said in the intro, we are going to be doing a little rose bush with some shadows. So I'm going to start by marking in where I want my larger flowers to be. And we don't have to worry about making the rose too exact. I'm just kind of doing an oval motion here. Maybe make a couple petals look like they're open. And I kind of consider my style more impressionism, so that's why I'm not being too realistic with these flowers. Now, if you are more of a realistic painter, feel free to just take a little bit more time on your rose sketches. My tutorial is just kind of more of a guide for you to use however you'd like. You can follow my tutorial to help guide you with colors or use it kind of for the sketch. It is totally up to you. All of our artwork is so different, and that is okay. I'm gonna have maybe a couple more. I don't want too many roses because I want the main point of this painting to really be the shadows that we are going to see behind the rose bush. I think I'm gonna leave it here at like 4 or 5 roses. You can add more if you'd like. Now I'm just going to kind of go in and add maybe where we're going to put some of our leaf stems. And again, you don't have to worry about being too particular with this. I'm just making some lines and scribbles where we want a leaf. I'm kind of making it a little bit lopsided, more heavier on the right side, but you can feel free to put your flowers or leaves wherever. I do feel like giving it that asymmetry does make it feel a little bit more realistic rather than going all the way across very formally, just because rose bushes in general are asymmetrical. So that's why I'm kind of trying to keep it more natural. This is my first tutorial I've done in a little bit. I've been doing a lot of live wedding paintings lately, a lot of markets. So if you've been following me on this channel, you'll see I've been just doing a lot more vlogging and taking you along on those journeys rather than tutorials, but kind of on a little bit of a break here. So I'm hoping to get back to some tutorials and help you guys practice some more watercolor. I always need more practice. So I think we're going to leave our sketch here and we are going to start with our painting. So let's go ahead and grab our water jar and our large brush, and we are going to wet our brush to grab our colors. So I'm going to start with this back wall here, and I want it to be a really light color, maybe almost like a cream or a pinkish. So I'm just going to add a little bit of white here, maybe some yellow or brown. I just want it to be kind of an off-white color to contrast with the green leaves that we're going to have in our rose bush. So once you have a color that you like, go ahead and lightly swipe that across the entire page or wherever you marked out where you want your paint. And I'm just gonna bring that all the way down. And it's okay to cover some of the areas that you marked out where you're going to have a leaf, because the green will cover right over this light color. Now, it's important to know, if you are new to watercolor, it's much different than painting with oils or acrylic. You want to work from light to dark. So that's why we're starting with our lightest colors here. Whereas acrylic and oil, you kind of work the opposite. You can start with your dark colors and go lighter over it. Can't really do that with watercolor. So it takes a lot more planning, I think, with this medium. I'm just gonna grab my smaller brush here, and I'm going to grab just a little bit of a darker color and add that around the borders or edges here. Give it a little bit more depth. I have really been loving playing with light and shadows, and so that's why I wanted to do this tutorial. It's something that I kind of wish I learned a little bit earlier in my watercolor career. It just adds so much depth when you have shadows, and I just love the look of like using different colors for shadows. So for today, we're going to do we're going to mix up like a blue purplish color for our shadows. So go ahead and grab some blue, maybe a little bit of red in there, and a little bit of white maybe. Maybe even some black here. So something you should know about my teaching style is I don't really go by color names. I kind of just mix them until I like the color. And that's why if you don't have this watercolor kit, you can just use whatever you have. You know, if you have the Praying Oval 16, that's the watercolor kit that I started with and used for a long time. I have that also linked in my Amazon storefront. It's a great beginner watercolor kit because it's super cheap. And when you're just starting off with watercolor, I don't really see a need to pay. I believe the one I have right now is about $96 for the kit. And I find that really worth it because I use watercolor a lot. So, you know, if you feel like you want to make that investment, go right ahead. But I know when I first started, I was like a little bit nervous to drop that much money for some art supplies. So I started with the cheaper materials, and you know what? They worked just fine for me. Now with these shadows, I'm just going to lay in this purplish color just sporadically throughout this painting. I'm keeping it more concentrated here at the bottom where the greenery is going to go. And now I'm just making them in the shape of leaves where they're going to kind of imitate a shadow of the leaves that we are going to go in and paint later. You don't have to follow exactly where I'm placing them because that, you know, might be a little stressful to try to match it up exactly. It's just go ahead and dot in wherever you think they're needed to balance out the painting. I'm going to go ahead and mix up a little bit more here. And I just think that the painting always starts to come together once you add in the greenery, because you'll really I think right now it's kind of like, oh, where's this painting going? That's how I always feel when I try to paint with, you know, shadows behind an object, because I always start with the shadows and kind of looks weird at first because you're like, what's going on here in this painting? But it starts to come together a lot more once we add in those leaves. Okay, so we are done with the shadow. So if you need to pause the video just to kind of complete that part, I am now going to move on to the color of the rose, and then we'll finally finish with the leaves. So you can make the rose whatever color you want. I'm gonna opt for kind of maybe a light pink. So I just have some red here, mixing that with some white. And I'm just going to start with a really light color here and lay that all over this large rose that we have here in the center. And then I'm just going to mix up a little bit more paint here, and I'm just going to tap that into the center of the rose. And we're going to do the same thing to the other flowers that we've got here around. I think I just have about 4 of them, so this part's pretty quick. I'm pretty loose with my flowers. I kind of just wanted to make the impression that they're roses. They could actually look like maybe more like other flowers. So that's just my style of painting. But again, everyone's artwork is going to look different today. So I'd love to see what you're working on if you follow one of my tutorials. So feel free to go tag me in it if you post on Instagram. I would love to see it. Now I'm going to grab just a darker color here, maybe some pink and blues, black maybe. Just want to get a dark color that can help define the flower a little bit more. Let's go ahead and lay that in here. I'm going to keep it maybe to just the left side of the rose. And after we let this area dry a little bit, we're actually going to go in with our really tiny brush to just add a little bit more detail. I feel like this summer is flying by already. It's currently July here, but I feel like whenever we go past July 4th, I don't know why, maybe because of the many years we were in school. I haven't been in like high school or anything for like 10 years, but I feel like every time we get past July 4th, I'm just like, wow, it's almost fall because it feels like back to school time. And I'm just trying to embrace as much summer as I can. So now we are going to just go ahead and mix up some green here and grab green and maybe some yellow and brown to make it a little bit more earthy. I usually opt for more toned down colors. So let's go ahead and add this all in here. And I feel like this part's maybe where you're gonna see the painting start to come together. If you're like me, you always have little moments of panic where you're like, I don't know if I should continue this painting, but usually the answer is you should continue it until the end, and then if you want to throw it away you can. But I always struggle with that. I'm like, I don't want to waste time doing a painting if I don't think it's turning out well, but it's really always hard to tell until you finish it. Like for instance, I don't know that these are my favorite roses that I've ever painted. I'm gonna go try to fix them a little bit here at the end of the green part here, but just being honest with you, I'm like, well, you know what, this is still fun to paint, and I hope that you're having fun painting this right along with me. I'm going to start adding in our leaves here at the top. Going to dot in those leaves where we want them. Now here's where we're just going to kind of put some of the greenery laying over the blue area that we've already put, so it's okay to cover that up if you need to add in some more leaves. Now I'm just going to mix up a little bit of a darker green here, maybe some black in there or dark blue. Just kind of dot that in here around the bottom. It's going to show that there are just piles of leaves layered over each other. Now I'm just using the very tip of my brush to make these like thin lines, and we're going to go in again, like I said, with our thinner brush to add more of these, but I kind of like to start with this medium brush and then finish with the small brush to add in those final details. Now I'm just going to again add in the leaves up here at the top. Then I'm gonna add them on this side, which I really do think that this painting is starting to pull together, so panic averted. But you know what, like I said, not every painting has to be your favorite, and that is just a pill that I have to swallow every day. Sometimes I am annoyed if I finish a painting. I'm like, this is not my favorite. I'm like, I feel like I just kind of wasted my time, but I'm like, no time is wasted because I'm practicing. And even if I don't like a painting or how it turns out, I learned something while doing it, and that's really what matters, is to practice. And I was listening to a podcast. It's called the Composed Artist Podcast. I love it. She's a live wedding painter, but talks a lot about just art in general. And the thing that the guest on the podcast was saying was the most important way to grow in your art is to get in your mileage on paper, and it's to just practice. And there was this art study where this professor asked half of his class to do an assignment where you were graded on the quantity, so the amount of photos that you took. they had to get to 100 photos. And then there was the other half of the class where they were graded on quality and had to only submit one photo. But the professor found that the best photos in the class came from the students who did the quantity, who had to do 100, just because they were out there taking a lot more photos. Even though they weren't worried about quality as much, it ended up being that they had the more quality photos because of the amount that they took and the practice that they had. So I'm trying to apply that here to my art, in that I'm just trying to practice as much as I can. Okay, now I'm going to take my little brush here and we're going to do some touch-ups. So one, I'm going to go touch up some of the roses that I did. And I'm going to take a darker color, so maybe some dark purple here, dark reddish. And I just want to go in and kind of outline some of the petals very lightly. Don't want to go overboard with the outlining. I'm just kind of trying to lay out a little bit more where they're falling, just because I kind of wasn't liking how it looked too blobby. I don't know what the word is. Like, it just, I kind of let the paint run a little bit too much. And so sometimes when that happens, I just take a really thin brush and I'll just outline some things, and it usually helps define it more. And I do think that this actually really helped. So just a tip for if you're letting paint run a little bit too much. It's always a hard balance with watercolor, because I do want it to blend together and run together, because that's what I think makes watercolor so unique, is the way you can blend it. But there's a balance, because you can let it run a little bit too much. And I think that's what I did in this painting. But here's how I usually fix that problem. I'm a self-taught watercolor artist. I learned, like how, if you're watching this video, how you're learning right now. I watched YouTube tutorials, followed a bunch of artists and did tutorials. So that's how I spent a lot of my time learning, and I still do. I find artists that I like and I take their tutorials. So no art school here. I'm just going to finish outlining this other one we've got here. And then I am going to add some more dimension to our greenery. So just taking a dark green color here. And I'm just going to go ahead and put some little impressions to show that there are some stems. Going to add that in here. I always think this just adds so much depth when you add just some dark little lines. You could also accomplish this. I've kind of just discovered, I knew about them, but I never really used them. Micro pens, which I don't really use in a lot of my paintings, but I've kind of been experimenting with them and I actually really like them. They're kind of similar to just taking a really small brush like this and adding some details, but basically it's just a really thin pen. And you can kind of accomplish this with that as well if you've got a micro pen. I'll have to do some more experimenting with that and then maybe make a video using one, because I think they're pretty cool to add some more, just to add a little bit of detail. I'm just going to do just a couple more quick swipes here, but overall I think we are just about done with this painting. And I really hope you enjoyed this one, because I thought this one was just a really fun one to do. Makes such a nice little homey piece of decor if you are making this for your house, or if you're making it to gift to a friend. And this is all complete, so thank you for joining me in today's video, and I'd again love to see what you worked on, so feel free to post it on your story on Instagram or just send me a message. Thank you all for joining my tutorial today. I hope you all walk away with a beautiful rosebush painting, and I'd love if you post a picture and tag me in it if you're on social media, so you can find me at Emily Winslow Art on all platforms. And feel free to comment below what else you want to learn how to paint. I'm always looking for new suggestions. And if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because I have another tutorial coming out very soon. Until we paint again next time.